The Stage 2 playoff final saw the hugely anticipated rematch between the Vancouver Titans and San Francisco Shock for the second consecutive stage final, with both sides riding massive waves of momentum on the back of undefeated streaks that now saw Vancouver look to retain their crown, as San Francisco looked to go one better than last time round and have their revenge. So taking each map one by one, let's discuss what went down and see how our Stage 2 champions were crowned. Map 1 saw the two sides face off on Lijiang Tower, and immediately it was obvious that we were in for a similar treat that their last meeting had provided. Unsurprisingly, they both came out on 3-3 goats on the first round, control centre, and it was the Titans who struck first blood, picking off Rascal, who was caught out of position early on the Brigitte, that led to Vancouver's first point cap. It was clear that from this engagement alone, that even the smallest mistakes would be punished by these two top-class teams, with even the slightest advantage being exploited to the max. They managed to reach 59% before the Shock behind their ever-reliable Ryan-Zarya combo of Super and Sinatra utilised their aggression to flip the point and keep the pressure on Vancouver, with their ultimates finding far more value as they went on to take the first round. This led us into Night Market, which saw a similar story be told, with the Titans getting the better of the first engagement, before the Shock achieved the flip on the back of a higher value Earthshatter and Graviton. Unlike the previous round though, the Titans did manage to wrestle back the point, with the Shock at 89%, but this left them in a difficult position, likely needing to win every fight to take the round. But with Vancouver reaching 99%, San Francisco first managed to catch Haxel away from the rest of his team, before staggering Bumper to recapture the point, and with the respawns taking too long, no one on the side of the Titans managed to touch the point, confirming the round, and thus the first map for the Shock, as they took a 1-0 lead. An air of familiarity came with San Francisco taking the first map of the series, as Vancouver used their map choice to select King's Row, a map that has consistently gone in their favour in the past meetings between the two sides. Though at first, this appeared not to be the case, as the Shock came out of the gates at a blistering pace, capping the first point in a flash after catching Haxel out immediately. Their progress showed no signs of slowing, with the side almost getting past the second checkpoint after a really nice 3-man shatter, following a clever Moth Boop set up on Bumper. Unfortunately, this boop actually propelled the Korean Rhine into San Francisco backline, where he countered with his own 4-man shatter that ended up wiping his opponents and slowing their attack. Dusting themselves down though, the Shock returned with purpose, managing to survive another big Bumper Earth shatter to take the checkpoint before rolling on to complete the map with 3 minutes 20 remaining. Their pressure surprisingly forcing the Titans to C9 the point, and put them under a lot of pressure going into their own attack. As we've seen in the past however, it's in these moments where Vancouver are able to turn up the tempo to another gear, as they despite a slower first push, took advantage of a flanking Bumper shatter to take the initiative and roll through to the end of the map, only 9 seconds slower than San Francisco had achieved. The Titans went first on the second round of attacks, and again it was off the back of catching Rascal early, as well as an effective Bumper shatter. They managed to push the payload in overtime halfway through the last section of the map, swinging the pressure back onto the Shock to reply. In their response, however, we saw a similar issue repeat itself, with Violet using his Transcendences too early that were then punished patiently by Xiaomin Su, but also put him in a percentage mismatch. And it was this mismatch in percentage that ended up crucial, as again at the end of the second section, it was a Xiaomin Su grab that resulted in a team wipe with Trans not online, as Vancouver levelled the series at 1-1. By now it was obvious that we were in for another incredible series in the stage finals between these two sides. And so far, it was following a very similar script, with them trading maps back and forth to one another, as the Shock selected Paris in their choice of the third map. In one of the most surprising maps played between these two sides, San Francisco attacked first, and given they'd held the record for the fastest ever attack on this map, a record they had broken twice in the same game, they were expected to hold the edge, but simply their attack never got going. They initially struggled with the cleave being pressured onto them by Bumper's Winston, as well as their pathing to the point, although they eventually managed to capture just over 90% after positioning themselves on the objective. Yet a bizarre shatter from Super, as well as his team being split up, was punished on a re-engage by the Titans, who managed to hold the point with relative ease, as the Shock's attack fell apart, and failed to complete the capture, and ran out of time. With 4 minutes to capture this first point, Vancouver brought out their famous quad DPS, which at first gave San Francisco fans some hope that they'd be able to punish the Titans for this decision, and actually managed to hold. This hope quickly faded however, as Choi Hyobin, in one of his only mistakes all series, was booped off the map by Haxel's Pharah after using his thrusters, which allowed Bumper and co to roll on to finish off their weakened opposition and capture the point, taking a 2-1 lead in the series. Unlike the last time these two teams faced, Vancouver now had taken an early map lead, and this made the next map fundamental in determining the overall winner of the series, with the Shock needing to show us a response with another consecutive Vancouver victory, likely putting them in the driving seat towards being crowned champions. Choosing Gibraltar to mount their comeback, San Francisco rushed out of spawn with purpose and got the better of the early engagements with constant pressure onto the Titans, which resulted in them catching Haxel out early, leading to a quick first section capture, as I thought the Brigs on both sides suffered the most out of everyone throughout this match. The momentum was firmly with the Shock, who looked set to race through the second checkpoint after taking out Bumper in the next teamfight. But again, another early Violet Trance put this at risk, requiring Super and Sinatra to come in clutch with a Grav Shatter combo to get the payload through. They again looked set to rapidly complete the map, but first Violet let Rascal die as he delayed his trance, and then Sinatra was caught out by a Janu Diva Bomb that allowed the Titans to finally stem this momentum and bleed a little more time off the clock, as they subsequently went on to finish the map with just over a minute and a half remaining. Again, like Kings Row, Vancouver went on to complete the map. This time it was a lot slower, with the Shock, especially in the first session, managing to stall their push for quite some time. I just want to highlight the performance of Slime during this map, who was crucial to his team finding success, constantly booping members of the Shock out of position. And like Moth, the pair I felt were underappreciated, but fundamental players for each team throughout the series. The inferior time bank this time round did in fact come back to bite the Titans, as the Shock managed to turn a 5v6 around in their favour and end Vancouver's second push, so just before the end of the first section. With such an opening presented to them to level the series, San Francisco didn't hesitate for a second, and off of a massive boot from Moth, deleted Xiaomin Su in a second, to consequently wipe their opponents and tie the match at a 2-2 scoreline. It now returned back to the control map type, and Vancouver picked Oasis as they looked to restore their lead, but it has seemingly become a common feature of these matches between the Titans and Shock. It's the boys in orange that dominate this map type, and this didn't change here, with San Francisco dominating the lion's share of engagements. For as much as I've expressed his issues with transcendences in this series, Violet showed off his own personal skill with a number of crucial picks, whilst it was his counterpart Twilight who was forced into early transes that Sinatra punished as the Shock took the first round. The second round was even more one-sided, with Choi Hyobin also noticeably having yet another underappreciated but important series, as San Francisco comfortably shut down Vancouver to only 46% this round, as they regained the lead and momentum in the series at 3-2. Unlike their last meeting, the maps by this point, even though they'd been at the same score, were not being traded evenly back and forth, which had given us an opportunity to seeing how the Shock responded to losing 2 consecutive maps, which they passed through with flying colours and mental fortitude. But now it was the turn of the Titans in this situation, which in my preview I said perhaps was a good approach for San Francisco to force them into. With their playoff hopes hanging in the balance, just as in the Stage 1 finals, it was again the Titans' last chance to pick the map, and despite having the chance to choose Eichenwald, they instead went with Blizzard World, to the surprise of many, given how much they'd struggled on it just the day before, dropping it in their only map loss to New York. That said, it started well for Vancouver, as they dominated the opening exchanges on defence, again managing to get the first picks onto Rascal. But then came the pivotal moment with 2 minutes remaining in the Shock's attack of the first point. The Shock were grabbed as the Titans looked to engage, when Super hit a massive counter shatter that resulted in a sextuple kill on his part, which looked like a very major and significant turning point in the series. By all means, the rest of the map proved a slog for San Francisco, just managing to reach the final section in overtime, after a clutch 3 moments from Sinatra, who tore apart his opponents with his Zarya at the second checkpoint. But it was Vancouver who got the last laugh of this attack, stopping them to just before the end, and meaning this map would have to have a definitive result, one way or another. All the pressure was on the Titans, and initially they also struggled to take the first point for a couple of minutes, until it finally looked like they would, as they took out 4 members of the Shock, leaving just Sinatra and Rascal, as they still had 4 remaining themselves. But in the most clutch moment of the entire series, the San Francisco pair, on the back of a Graviton, extraordinarily managed to turn the fight around and prevent the point from falling in a moment that just seemed to tell you it was going to be their day. They did manage to eventually take the point with 30 seconds left, but 3 minutes later, and after they lost another teamfight, Vancouver found themselves scrambling towards the point for what looked like to be the final teamfight. With switches onto Hammond and Anna, the desperation on the side of the Titans was apparent, and the result became clear, as they just managed to touch the point. Not to throw away their chance, the Shock effectively took them out one by one, as Vancouver's attack was ended in the same place as against the Excelsior, as San Francisco won the map, therefore confirming the 4-2 series win and the Stage 2 crown. This was yet another extraordinary final against clearly the best two teams in the league, and was equally historic in finally ending the momentous undefeated streak of the Vancouver Titans, that although in the short term led to many rejoicing in the team finally losing, I'm also sure in the long term will be celebrated and respected given how incredible it's been. The reaction of the teams at the close of the series was a mirror from Stage 1, one team in ecstasy, the other in despair and disappointment, but this time the roles were flipped, with Bumper and Super being highlighted as the cameras panned onto them. Both teams played their hearts out all stage, but in the end the Shock were the ones who made fewer mistakes, played the meta more cleanly, and in my opinion were deserved champions. With the Stage 2 playoffs coming to a close, it also confirmed my 100% playoff bracket, as well as my pre-stage prediction of the Shock as champions, and has left me, and I'm sure most of you, waiting to see what the next rematch has in store, given the quality that's put on display every time these two teams go head to head. A third consecutive stage final, depending on the meta perhaps. And with that, we've finally reached the end of my Stage 2 playoff finals review, and I hope you enjoyed. I'm looking to do my end of Stage 2 power rankings on Wednesday, so to ensure you don't miss out, please like, subscribe and follow me on Twitter for this continuing Overwatch League coverage and content.